Well, hello there, Thomas Kissinger. And I'm pulled over on the side of the road here. It's a rainy day for work. I work outside. I have a window installation company, and so pulled over for a few minutes waiting for the rain to stop, and I thought, what the heck, why not shoot a little video? One of the things we said we'd bring on the next teaching is exposing the English word hell that's been used in the scriptures and what it really means, and taking a closer look at it. So the English word hell is used approximately about 54 times, if I remember correctly, in the King James Version. And it's one English word that is used to represent one Hebrew word and 3 Greek words. But it really never should have been put in there. And then the other thing about the English word hell is that it has come to mean something in today's world and in Christian circles that it did not mean originally. So what you have is the Hebrew word Sheol, which means the grave or the place of the dead. And then you have the Greek equivalent Hades, which would also mean the grave or the place of the dead. And then you have Gehenna, which was the dump outside of the city where they burned refuse and trash. And Jesus used Gehenna as a metaphor, and he said, you know, obviously alluding to it, the fire is not quenched and the worm never dies. But this is not an after-death location. Jesus used this place, Gehenna, as a metaphor to speak about trash in our lives, wood, hay, and stubble, things in our lives that are religious or idolatrous or are not of God, that are headed for the purifying fires of God. And then the Greek word Tartaroo, which is represented by Tartarus, is really a Greek word that just carries with it the idea of a place of holding and confinement until the day of judgment. And so it is said in the scriptures that there are apostates or reprobates or angels, if you will, that are reserved until a day of judgment. So that's what that's speaking of. But when we hear the word hell in today's Christian circles, we think of a literal place of torture beyond physical death where God is going to burn people in literal fire forever and ever. But I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, that's not the case. God is a God of love. And yes, He will administer His purifying fire, and He will administer even His judgment, wrath, vengeance, and destruction. But I promise you that these things are for the purpose of correction. God has no literal place that He's going to send people and burn them in physical fire for all eternity. Those ideas, or that way of thinking, was borrowed from ancient mythology when you get into it and you study it. And so we'll touch more on that next time. I just wanted to introduce you here to these words: Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, and Tartaroo. Sheol, the Hebrew word, means the grave or the place of the dead. And Hades is the Greek equivalent, and it means the grave or the place of the dead. Gehenna was the dump outside of the city, of Jerusalem in Jesus' day. And he pointed to it and referred to it as a metaphor. And then Tartaroo is a Greek word that speaks of a holding or a confinement until a day of judgment. And, by the way, judgment causes people to learn righteousness. It tells us in the scriptures, when God's judgments are in the earth, that the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness. So this is just a little starter video on Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, and Tartaroo, And on the next teaching also, we'll get more into the original meaning of the English word hell, what it used to mean, and showing what it has come to mean in today's present world, and that it is false.